Okay, with the 4th of July weekend coming up, yeah, this is Sunday for me. I guess business is starting to slow down and not getting a lot, just getting a trickle here or there. Yesterday I got a weed eater that guy wants me to fix well, it won't stay running. It's a carburetor issue. So I've ordered a carburetor. I've got a chainsaw that just needs a hose. So I've already ordered that, but it's coming from China, so it's gonna take forever to get here. So, I mean, it could be one of two things. It could be the holidays, or it could be that nobody likes my work and the word's out, don't hire this guy anymore. I haven't gotten any complaints since we started back up doing this. No one has said, hey, you know, you didn't fix my problem. There was one lady who wrote back and she said, it ran for about an hour and it started chugging. Now, when she gave it to me, it wouldn't start, so we got it cleaned up. It was a little Toro self-propelled push mower thing. So we got it to start, and she was happy when she picked it up, or I guess I delivered it to her. I told her, you're going to need an air filter. Now, I would have been happy to order the air filter. I asked her if she wanted me to order the air filter, but she took it anyways without the air filter. So it started running rough. So she said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to order an air filter and see if it clears up. She asked me if I changed the spark plug, which I had not, so maybe she even got a new spark plug, I don't know. I said, well, if that doesn't fix it, it could be the valves. And she said, well, let's wait until the end of the week. We'll get the air filter on and see what happens. And she wrote back and said, hey, it runs great. So, you know, that was about the closest I got to a complaint, I think. Yeah, I just went over to a guy's house a couple days ago, and I was worried about this one. He wanted me to work on his Polaris ATV, and I said no. I don't want to get out of my lane. I'm quite happy just working on lawnmowers or lawn equipment. But when you get into the ATVs and motorcycles and all that, it's just a different setup. It would be harder for me to find parts, and I've never really worked on them, so I don't know where everything's located. So he said, well, will you at least change out the battery? So I ordered a battery based on what I could find. He didn't have any information about his ATV. So I said, well, I can order one, but it's a risk. I might have to return it. And we can see what happens, because I'm not sure what I'm ordering. And he says, that's fine. Do whatever you need to do. So I ordered one. It came in about a week later. And so I went over there. And sure enough, it was a nightmare to work on. It was underneath the front end. I had to take the wheel off to get it to it. It was nuts. It was a little bit shorter than the original, had a few less amps, but it did turn over. But whatever the problem with it was, it wouldn't start. And he asked me would I work on it. I said, well, I mean, I don't have any tools here to work on it, so I just don't think I should. And my thinking is, here's my thinking. I don't think I want to work on anything I can't replace. If I burn up an engine on a lawnmower, it's $700. I wouldn't want to spend it. Quite honestly, it would just tear me up if I blew up an engine and I had to replace it. If I had to replace a Polaris engine, I mean, what would that cost? I don't know. And I don't want to venture to guess. Somebody asked me if I would work on their boat. No, electrical no less. So if it catches on fire, I'm buying a whole new boat. So no, I'm just not going to get into all that. I just want to be able to work on things I can replace. Again, wouldn't want to replace it, but I could if I had to. So he said, that's fine. But anyway, while I was over there, I mean, I knew this is what he wanted. He also, on the phone call, said he wanted me to work on his zero turn. It has 16 hours on it. He's only used it one time to cut his yard last year. And he started up, and one of the wheels, he could make the one wheel go, but the other wheel wouldn't go. I said, well, maybe a belt slipped off or something. I can jack it up and take a look at it. So we get over there to work on that one. After I finished the Polaris, battery change, took an hour. We tried to start it, and the battery was dead. So I said, let's jump it. So we jumped it. He got on it, drove right off. It drove fine. There was nothing wrong with it. So he says, would you mind running out and getting the battery for me? Okay, yeah, I can do that. I said, there's a hardware store not too terribly far from me here. So I said, we can go to the hardware store and we drive all the way out to Walmart. It's your choice. I mean, it's going to cost you either way because, you know, we got gas and all that to get out to Walmart, or we can just go to the hardware store and spend an extra 10 or 15 bucks on the battery. He says, I would rather support the local hardware store than Walmart anyways. That's why I've hired you, because you're local. So I went out to the hardware store, picked up the battery, brought it back, and it was a good payday for me. While I was over there, he says, could you use a lawnmower lift? Well, my fear was he wanted to trade a lawnmower lift for work. And I said, well, I just, a lawnmower lift would be a nice thing to have. It's a luxury item. That's all it is. I can use a jack and jack stands just as well as I can use a lawnmower lift. So I'd rather, you know, make the money working on your equipment. He says, no, I want to give it to you. It's still in the box. I bought it 2 years ago, laid it out here on the patio, and I've just gotten too old to put it together. So he runs inside, gets on his computer, gets on Amazon, and prints off the Amazon page that he bought it from. It was a $300 lift. So not only did he pay me for my work, I'm sure there's going to be a troll out there, oh, that's bull, you should have just done the work for free. I don't need the lift. I need the money. That's how life works. The box was completely disintegrated. Around all the pieces, the bolts and everything were just kind of laying on the ground, covered in this disintegrated wet box. But I got it home and there was nothing missing. Everything was there. So I assembled it. The first thing I had to do was I had to get the rust off this screw. It was caked in rust. So what I did was I poured WD-40 on it. I took my impact wrench, I took the top off here, and I just ran the impact wrench up a few times and back down and cleaned that rust right off. It spins real easy now. So what this is you park your tires. These can expand out. You take these pins out, they can expand out or go back in. You park your front wheels. I think you can park your back wheels on it too. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll experiment with it. They don't look like they'll fit though. So you park on it, and then all you got to do is spin it, and it goes up. It's going to be so slow on camera, maybe you can see it. Of course, you put the straps around the tires, and then you get it up high enough, it'll start locking into these holes. It's brand spanking new. I know it's, you know, it was sitting out in the weather for 2 years, but it's brand new. Everything was there. Other than this screw, it works perfectly. And then the screw just wasn't that hard to fix with the impact wrench. You know, I'd run that impact wrench until it wouldn't go anymore, and then I'd back it up. All that rust would fall off, and I'd run it back down. I mean, I could have taken a wire brush, but it was just as easy to do it that way. I'm back to advertising, but what I see is, yeah, I said, you know, there's two things. Either nobody likes me or everybody's out on vacation. What I'm seeing on the Facebook groups where I'm only advertising in the Facebook groups for this area. I think I've advertised 3 times in 3 of the groups, I should say. I just advertised again yesterday. So prior to yesterday, I advertised 3 times. And about once a week I would go in and I would make a comment in my advertisement. I can fix it, I can still fix it, or I give a thumbs up or something, and that would bump it back to the top. And as soon as it would bump back to the top, I get a customer. Now what I'm seeing is the groups are dead. Nobody's in them. There was a yard sale, and anytime somebody posts a yard sale, people go ballistic on those. But there was a yard sale this weekend and nobody commented. And it looked like a pretty decent yard sale. Guitars and, I mean, just a bunch of good stuff. The guy who gave me the zero turn to work on gave me this lawnmower. You know, I've went back and forth on what I want to do with this one. It needs a lot of work. The tires need fixing or replaced. It needs an overhead valve gasket. I just bought a ignition coil. I've decided I'm not going to put it on. It needs starting solenoid, which I haven't ordered yet. So what I was thinking about doing is just going one piece at a time until I figured out all the things that needed. I've decided I'm not going to work on it. I might eventually just work on the engine, forget about the tires and all that, and see if I can get it running. But that would just be for practice and learning experience and that kind of stuff. If somebody gave me a lawnmower and say, hey, I just blew the engine, I could say, well, I got a rebuilt one, and I probably could get more money out of the engine, profit, I should say profit, than I could by rebuilding the entire lawnmower. I mean, seat covers and tires and everything. Everything would have to be replaced. It's going to be expensive, $300 or $400 just to get it up and running to a point where you could sell it. And so what I discovered the other day, somebody gave me another Craftsman, but instead of a single cylinder, it had 2 cylinders. It was a V-twin, 22 horsepower. I mean, it was great. And I posted it for $300. Now I put $125 into it, so I was expecting maybe $175 in profit. I put about 8 hours of work into it because I had to replace the head gasket and the overhead valves gasket. I forget what all I did to it, but there's a lot of things I had to do to it. Change the oil. They talk you down, and he talked me down to $250. So I made about $125. Well, if I am investing $300 into this and I'm only getting $250, I've lost 50 bucks. So either we're going to use it for parts, which I've already started using some of it for parts, or I'm going to try to rebuild it, just the engine. But I'm not going to touch the mower itself. Now, yesterday I decided not to work on a mower. It was here. I even ordered some of the parts. I'm going to return them. And it was a John Deere. It didn't have a hood. It was sitting right here. So when I pulled it into the spot where I was going to work on it, pulled it over to here, I was actually going to use the lift because they wanted me to change the belt on the mower deck. And I started really examining everything that was wrong with the mower. They told me, here's what they said: I need you to get it running, and it needs a new mower deck belt. Well, that's fine. So initially it needed an ignition coil, there was a seat switch problem, then it realized, no, we needed a carburetor. So I ordered about $50 in parts. When I got the parts, I parked it over here. The transmission's locked up. It just won't budge. So I decided to take a labor loss on that. And I told them I don't, because they were really concerned about price. And I started listing off some of the things. The mower deck wouldn't go up and down. The engagement bar wasn't engaging. There was a lot of things wrong with it that would have taken more labor than I think they would want to pay for. So I wrote them back and said, I don't think it's a good idea to work on it. I will if you want me to, but there's a lot wrong with it. I mean, we can get this thing running, and then you need a new $900 transmission. So they said, no, bring it back. So I brought it back to them, and I didn't get paid anything on that. I know it's a loss, and I'm even considering keeping the carburetor and the ignition coil. Something else might come in, and I can just, instead of having to order one, I've got one. So I've been kind of keeping an inventory, sort of. I mean, it's a really bad inventory, but I write the date purchased. Of course, I don't have a lot of computer systems and all that, so what I do is I can go back to the date purchase on Amazon, and I can see what kind of carburetor that is. Of course, there's a part number on it, but then I can cross-reference it. I can look up what different lawnmowers it'll start or be used on. So kind of an inventory, but kind of not. Last night when this guy came with this weed eater, the initial thing was, do you have a priming bulb for a still weed eater? I said, just by luck I do. He said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. So he was here 20 minutes. I gave him the priming bulb, and he tried to install it on the back of his truck, and it still didn't run. He says, you want to work on it? And I said, yeah, I mean, it's a carburetor issue. I know what it is. Okay. He didn't even ask a price. I said, it's going to take a week to 10 days. It's okay, I'm out of town for 2 weeks. So I got a job, just that simple. And the thing that's interesting is word of mouth is starting to get around apparently, because he says, I got your phone number from somebody. Well, I don't know who he got it from. I mean, that was great, but who'd you get it from? As long as I'm not making a bunch of people unhappy. I did one job. They didn't say they were unhappy, but I'm sure they are. You know, you have to go through steps. And they definitely had a carburetor issue. There is no doubt in my mind they had a carburetor issue. Well, I know it is. I still got the carburetor, took it apart. It's bad. But when I got a new carburetor on it, I realized their governor has thrown its weights. And it would be very expensive to go through the labor to replace those weights on that governor. So I said, you can rebuild it, you can buy a new engine, or you can just wait until it dies. Yeah, he was disappointed. You could see it. So I may have lost that customer, but I don't know what more you can do when you have to go through the process and you try to document everything. I document everything I do, how much it's going to cost. From now on, I'm going to take extra caution and extra time to be very clear that the initial assessment is a carburetor. Anything identified after we get the engine running with the new carburetor is, you know, multiple things can be wrong with your lawnmower. But it's all going pretty good. So, if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to something I was working on. And I want to be extra clear on the end of this video. I really do want you to try to find something that you have dreamt about and go do it. I mean, this has been absolutely incredible. So you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.